All the time.
You just got done going over marking up a text, using margin notes and text marking. What was difficult? Was there anything difficult about doing that or easy about doing that? Is this something you guys have tried before?
Yeah.
You've done it in, what classes have you done this in?
English class, your
English?
class.
Mrs. Clavette's my class. In robotics, excellent. Where else?
Oh yeah,
Science.
Science class,
Science.
okay.
History.
History class, good. This is it's a
History.
technique you guys can use and modify to your needs, as Ms. Demichi had mentioned before. Some of you maybe need to take it one step at a time and start small, with just looking at vocabulary, and eventually you'll build up, and your text will be marked like crazy. Okay. So here's our second learning target for today. I can determine the meaning of unfamiliar words based on how they are used in a text, and demonstrate how to use them in a different way. I added this part on the learning target because I think it's important to know that words can be used differently depending on their context. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through one vocabulary strategy to help you kind of figure out what words mean using context clues. We will use another word,
Okay.
the strategy.
Word checking.
You've probably been doing this, I don't know, middle school, they probably start teaching this strategy.
Well, there's probably
It's what Angel just described. When you look at the sentence before,
foreshadowing.
the sentence after, literature. What's it called?
Visualize.
It does start with a C.
Composition.
Thank you, context. Look at the context of the word. And then, what do you try to do?
Find out what the word
Guess.
How it would be used in the
It's just a
sentence.
guess. Ms. Demichi and I don't know every word in the English language. We have to look up words a lot because it's impossible. There's so many words. And when you start, but the more you read and you see words, they start to you remember them. Or you can maybe make a connection. So using that context clue strategy is really important. Another good way is what we're going to do today is kind of break it down and look at the word in a different way to help you kind of put it into your mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to model an example for you using what you have in front of you.
Oh, God, I
Before you, it is.
I love Google.
Yeah.
Okay, so I read through the text and I came across the word conscious. And I sometimes confuse this with the word conscience. Like, you know, if you would think about your conscience and making a good choice. So what I did, if you guys want, you can write this down on one side. Okay, so write down the word conscious.
Conscious.
C-O-N
Yes, write it down.
S-C-I-O-U-S. Right where it says new word. So as I was reading, I came across this quote and I said, oh, identification also means that I am invested in that quality. I have a conscious wanting or needing to be that quality or image. Now I recognize the word and I've seen the word before, but not used this way. So I sat there and made sure that that's the word I wanted. So what I needed to do, in my case, was in the definition, I can go check good old dictionary.com or Merriam-Webster. Look it up, or I can probably think about it.
My favorite website. Yeah.
So here's some definitions.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, well, so, please, focus please. So here we have the word and the definition, and dictionary.com is really well known for throwing a lot of stuff you really don't need. So I look at these definitions. I always look at all of the definitions. And then what is really nice is they usually give you an example, and I try to think which one of these is probably the best definition for what that word is. It says aware of one's own existence, sensations, fully aware of or sensitive to something, having the mental faculties fully active, known to oneself, aware of what one is doing. So I go back to my article where I found the quote, It's right here. I have a conscience wanting or needing to be that quality or image. So what do you think that means? I have a conscience wanting or needing. I go back to my definitions.
You're a warrior.
Which one do you think works best for us here? I personally think it's probably number one. Aware of one's own existence, and that's what I'm gonna write down in my little sheet.
Shush.
So,
Yes.
in here,
Yes.
Thank you for that.
alright, so aware of one's own existence. Let me make this a little larger. So write that down in the definition block.
I'm sorry, I'm close.
Okay. So I looked at my word, I have the quote, I looked it up so I know what it means. And now I want to make some synonyms or find some synonyms. Or what is a synonym?
Words that mean the same thing but are different.
Excellent. Words that mean the same thing. If you look at your roots here, you have two roots in there, which is another discussion. Sin means same, nin means name, so same name. So I go look again, since I have dictionary.com already up. And this handy dandy little thing always has a list of synonyms. Knowing, I know what that means. Percipient. I would have to look that word up. So that's a clue to me not to ever use that in a paper that I write if I don't know what it means. Aware. Oh, aware. That's what I'm going to write for one of my synonyms. Anything else? Knowing. I do know the word cognizant. I like that word.
What word is that one?
Cognizant?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
I
good one.
like that word.
So I'm gonna write down aware, cognizant, because I know what that means. So I can write that down, and knowing. Okay, this word is starting to make sense to me. I'm aware of what it means. And so now I'm starting to make connections to, trying to remember what it means. Okay, so now, I've looked at the word, I've looked at how it's used in context, as Angel described for us before, and Nate gave us the word. I defined it, I wrote some synonyms for it. Now I'm going to see if I can put my new knowledge into practice by writing a sentence. So, I was
about his existence.
I was fully conscious of the fact that I was being followed.
You were being followed. You got cautious.
So I was fully conscious of the fact, it's a little wordy, that I was being followed. Because I can technically, how do I test if this word works?
That in this sentence, you just read.
Right, did I use the word correctly based on everything I have written down so far?
Yes.
How do I know that?
You
You look at it? What can I use that I've already developed on my sheet?
It's a quote.
The quote, is it used the same? Pretty much. The synonyms, because what other word could I replace conscious with?
Aware.
Aware, exactly,
Yeah.
okay?
Cognizant.
And then a different situation where the word applies.
Is that
Maybe, it applies maybe, in a hospital, when someone goes into a coma or gets knocked out, they become unconscious. Classroom, conscious of what's going on around me, what students are doing, when they should be listening,
That's the question.
also cognizant. So those are some different situations where the word applies. Okay? So I've used this word in 5 different ways.
Pretty
So
fancy.
now I should know this, if I could spell hospital right, that would also be a plus.
Always is.
My typing is not very hot today.
Yeah.
So here I have a new one word developed in different ways that I can now somehow place into my conscious, be aware of using that word differently next time. With the definition, synonyms, sentence, and other situations. Okay? And it's probably a lot of work for one word, but it's a really good way to break it down. Okay. So, David, what is one strategy that I used to learn this word?
We looked it up.
I looked it up. Ben?
You applied it to what you know.
I applied it to what I know. What else did I do?
You wrote down the definition.
I what?
You wrote down the definition.
I wrote down the definition. I looked up the word. Ben?
Based on what you knew, you used it in another sentence.
I used it in another sentence based on what I knew. Excellent. Anything else?
You wrote down different situations.
Different situations. How else could I use that word other than knowing it's in that article? And putting it into my own usage.
You wrote down synonyms.
And synonyms. Excellent. Okay. So do you understand what you need to do? All right. So what you're going to do is flip over the paper. So you have a blank one just for you.
Thank you.
You are going to take the article that you've already read this morning. You probably marked a word or two that you don't know.
What if we didn't?
You should have. You did. Select one of the words you chose this morning to write on your new word, and I'd like you to apply these strategies to the word you select.
What?
All right, so what are you doing? Could you explain to us what we're supposed to be doing?
That you gotta do exactly what you did in this second.
Exactly, with,
Dictionary.com.
or, how are you getting a word?
Looking it up.
Well, from the article, how are you getting it? From the article. And most of you circled and selected words from this morning. Yes, sir.
What if we didn't circle a word?
I would reread through it again and just see a word. Maybe, here's another strategy. If you didn't circle any words, go back through the article. Is there a word you don't totally know?
Maybe you just weren't looking for words?
That too. Thank you, Ben. Exactly. So I think Ms. Demichi had pointed out when some kids were struggling this morning, just read it now for vocabulary words, why we asked you to do multiple readings. Yes, David?
Can I go on my phone for dictionary?
Yes, you may.
Victor,
Please.
Muscovite. Nice. Wallets down.
You got dictionary.com, Merriam-Webster, I think there's free